But I believe I get a little note from production. I think we might be ready to go down to the match. So let's bring it over again. This is the final match of MTGO Masters. I forget what week we're on. We're in week 8. Yeah, thank you to production. I knew that. Anyways, elimination match. Loser goes home. Winner continues. As we have Ollie on the play. Pretty reasonable hand. Looks like a 2-drop, a Thoughtseize, a discharge, couple of lands. And then for Martin's side of things, I mean, this is kind of exactly how you draw it up, right?
Yeah, Martin's hand is basically the nuts, but he is on the draw against a Thoughtseize, so the Thoughtseize has to take probably the Burning Inquiry, and that's gonna that will make Martin reliant on drawing a second land for this Goblin lore, presumably. Of course, he could after the Inquiry of the lore, he can always just discard the hollow one. So even though the hand looks good,
You
it's
never
kind of
know.
hard to predict. Yeah.
Yeah, like you mentioned, there's just a lot of unpredictability when it comes to this Hollow One deck. The highs are very, very high, and then the lows are you cast Burning Inquiry and discard your 3 Hollow Ones, and you're left with 5 lands and the Tectus Phoenix or whatnot.
Oh,
One thing I did want to
interesting.
mention, ooh, choosing to take the Hollow One. That is kind of interesting. What do you make of that?
Well, Ali may not mind the Burning Inquiry so much because his hand is not very good. So his thought process may be the hollow one's going to come down. It's just one less hollow one he has to deal with. So he can beat one hollow one. He's got a galvanic discharge. That may be what he's thinking.
And funny enough, for Martin, does end up finding the second Burning Inquiry. So if Ali had taken that Burning Inquiry, we would have had the classic Thoughtseize bug, and Burning Inquiry coming out to the
Yeah,
top
now
here.
Martin could discard the hollow one and be left with no hollow ones.
Right. Let's see what we do. And that's exactly what happened. Discarded Hollow One, Inti, Street Wraith, and kept. He's still got a Goblin Lore and a Bowmasters, but would rather prefer to have one of those Hollow Ones.
Yeah, that was huge for Ali. Like that could have gone really poorly for him. It went exceptionally well, and now he's got that Bowmasters. Um, Now if he passes, Martin may be thinking about that card. He should be thinking about that card. We may get that classic like I pass and you pass, and because we both have Bowmasters, and who's gonna blink first? But we'll see.
Yeah,
Maybe
it's almost
okay.
like neither player wants to cast theirs first, because if you cast yours first, then yours dies to theirs. So it's like you get this weird staring contest. And Ollie's going to go for Amped Raptor. See what that hits. That hits a Thoughtseize, which is not terrible. My guess, this is interesting, where maybe you would consider taking one of the draw spells, but because there's 2 of them, maybe you take the Bowmasters instead.
Yeah, I think so. And also, Flage is another card that is very good against some of these discard spells because, I mean, Martin's doing the job of filling up the graveyard, and so Flage can then come out on as early as turn 4 um, from
Yeah,
Ali's
that's
side.
That's a really good point. Every single time one of these goblin lures, well, not goblin lures, but one of these burning inquiries is cast, it's really sort of detrimental, like you said, at getting that flage in the graveyard. So Marin's going to go for goblin lore. He discarded the third hollow one. That's just classic.
Wow. Yeah, Martin's gotten pretty unlucky here, I have to say, but that is kind of, you know, the highs are high and the lows are low. He would of course love one of these oxes to be in the graveyard. He also hasn't found a lightning bolt, which is one of the cards he would have liked to have found at this point.
Yeah, like you could imagine a world where this game, Martin has 2 Oxes in the graveyard, has 2 Hollow Ones in play, maybe even a Tectis Phoenix on one of them, and instead he just has 2 uncastable cards, an Inti that's not doing a ton, and has no pressure. So it's yeah, there's a lot of randomness when it comes to the Hollow One deck. As we see, a Flameblade Adept is the pickup here. As far as how Juza wants to proceed from here, it's kind of tough. Maybe you just go into this turn.
Yeah, I want to go back to Ali's decision to take that burning inquiry because I think when we go back and look at this game, that will be the key decision point because I don't think it was or sorry, to take a hollow one instead of the burning inquiry on turn 1 with the Thoughtseize. I think a lot of players would have taken that Burning Inquiry, and they probably would have lost right there.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. Like, it's as it turns out, it was a very good decision.
Yeah, and it was certain like you said, it was certainly a close decision. I had thought, given that Martin's hand, maybe it was better to take I initially thought Birdie Anchor was better, but like you mentioned, the way that Ollie's hand A was not very good at the time, and B had maybe enough gas to figure that he beat the first hollow one, but he just couldn't win a game where like Martin draws another copy of Burning Inquiry and just has two hollow ones on turn one. Like that's the situation where Ollie, realistically can't ever get out of that. And recognizing that is a pretty big skill.
Yeah, and also the Burning Inquiry is the card that is both players, right? Unlike the Goblin Lore. So
Yes.
Ali
Yep.
was looking at his hand and he had what, an Ant Raptor, and that was kind of like he didn't have much going on. So he was probably thinking, you know what? I don't mind drawing three fresh cards and like resetting my hand. And that's kind of what happened. His hand smoothed out after that Burning Inquiry.
Yeah, his hand definitely got a lot better. I think at the time it was because I'm pretty sure he kept four lands, Thoughtseize, Discharge, Raptor. So I think the leftovers were, yeah, I think it was three lands, Raptor, Discharge. So
Yep.
yeah, I mean it makes a lot of sense when you think about it like that.
Yep. Yeah. I think it was the right decision, and I think um it's paid off, obviously. He is just Martin is just dead here.
Yeah, the Flage in the graveyard should be able to set this up. So, if we maybe look a little bit ahead towards sideboard guides, give a little preview here. Let me take a look at the deck list. Well, I'll start with Martin's. So, Martin sideboard, a bunch of clean three ofs: Damping Sphere, Charmaw, Pyroclasm, Surgical, and Thoughtseize. Presumably, the Pyroclasms slam dunks in this matchup. Maybe you could go towards something like one or two Surgicals for something like Flage, because as you mentioned, it is kind of a big problem, especially against the I forgot the name of it. Burning Inquiry.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting because the more Martin sideboards, the less like aggressive his deck becomes in a way. Um so the Phlages are annoying, but like if Martin doesn't discard them to Burning Inquiry, maybe they're a little bit slow because Ali's on the draw here for game 3. So I am curious if he's going to bring in Surgical. Surgical in a lot of matchups, it's like one of those cards that I have trouble. Can be a little bit difficult to evaluate
Yeah.
because it's good in some circumstances, but is it going to be better than the card you're replacing on average? Because that's tough. It looks like he's taking out the Oxyvagonuses, which are really good as like a late game way to refuel, but it doesn't sound like. I mean, Marta may just be thinking, you know what, if Ali's got these Flages, then the late game isn't in my favor, and I'm on the play. So just go fast and rely on those Pyroclasms, like you were
Yeah.
saying.
You bring up a really good point where, Martin sort of the game. I feel like a lot of the games that Martin wins are short games, not long games, especially with the presence of like we talked about Flage plus Burning Inquiry. So I think that makes a ton of sense. And then as far as what Ollie is doing, it's like we're reaching towards those Obnixiluses. What do you make of that?
That doesn't seem like a card for this matchup. It may be that Ali is thinking that it's his better than the Ragavans because he doesn't want Ragavans, but um I would be hesitant to bring. I don't think he actively wants those Obnixiluses.
Yeah, that being said, there's not a ton in Ollie's sideboard. It's like Stone of Eric maybe can hit the graveyard against a Phoenix or an Ox.
And there's also the
Maybe
Nethergorse.
Thoughtseize. Right.
So
Yep.
yeah, but I guess that's true. Yeah, it doesn't really. Anyways, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's okay. No, yeah, it's just like it seems like there's not a ton of good options, and given the presence of Bowmasters in Martin's deck, really wants to get those Ragavans out of there. So Just kind of wants to have something with text. As we see opening hands here, Martin's got a couple Nethergoyfs, a Bowmasters, and a Phoenix. This looks like more of a Jund deck.
Yeah. So this is missing that inquiry or goblin lore. I think Martin's gonna keep this hand, or he already kept it. Ali's
Yep.
on 5. Okay, well,
It's a pretty
there
good
it is.
5, though.
Yes.
Although it is kind of awkward with the Blood Crypt, where you have the 3 white 1-drops, but you can't double spell on turn 2 because of the Blood Crypt. So good hand for Ollie, but the mana's a little strange here, as it were.
Good point. Good point. We didn't get really a great look at that 7. I was kind of curious, but yeah, I mean these Nethergoyfs. If Martin just finds one of those key cards, ways to fill up the graveyard, he'll be very happy. It looks like that mana problem you mentioned is now effectively solved.
Yep, we're going to lead on Guide of Souls here for Ollie. It's going to set up for turn 2 Guide plus Ocelot Pride. And my feed's kind of lagging a little bit. But he picked up a second copy of Bowmasters. So presumably Martin will probably want to hold up Orcish Bowmasters this turn for a potential Ocelot Pride. He's aware of that card in Ollie's deck. And it seems like casting the second Nethergoyf here doesn't accomplish a ton. So
Yeah, and you may want to attack also, just to try to get in a point of damage, but
yeah, I almost wonder if Martin attacks there. Do you think if you're Ollie, would you block?
I doubt it. Don't think Ali would block.
Fair point. I was thinking that maybe, like, if you're worried about Orcish Bowmasters, maybe you want to incentivize the Bowmasters there because you have the second guide and it like max your Ocelot Pride a little bit.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't thinking about that. I mean, Martin could just crack the fetch and surveil into something and then
Yeah,
kill it,
that's true.
so
So yeah, we see the Guide of Souls and the Ocelot Pride going to come down here for Ollie. That's going to be met with an Orcish Bowmasters, presumably, and then we'll go from there. Ollie's hand is not really improved, though. Mulligan to 5, had 2 lands, 3 pretty good spells, but it's only drawn lands so far. So Ollie's going to need some help off the top.
do you think Ali attacks? Yeah, attacks and then makes
Yeah, I like this.
yeah. The guide now becomes a pretty
B4, yep.
threatening creature here. And that's why I would have liked to see Martin attack with that Goyf. It would have been 1 extra point of damage.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think Ollie is very, very unlikely to block in that situation. So
But it is a good point about getting that Ocelot Pride off the board is really, really big deal.
so 3 damage is going to come across. Juza's already
Ooh.
done to 13, and oh my goodness, Seth, we can go second Bowmasters and Burning Inquiry. What do you think about that?
I mean, that's just insane, right? Like,
It's pretty good.
I hope. I mean, I assume that's what we're gonna see.
So how many triggers? We get 6 triggers, which is exactly enough to kill both. I guess you get the 7th trigger from the ETB, so you get to go on upstairs to Ollie eventually. But yeah,
There
this
may
is
be a
just
chance
so
this was
brutal.
lethal. There may have been a chance this was lethal. I probably would have gone first if the Guide of Souls was untapped. I think there might have been
Mm.
just a lethal, like depending on how big the Goyf is. If it's 5, but I mean, it's either way, it's just great. But there might have
So
been
you
enough
had
lethal.
Let's think. So you had 7 total. If you shoot the untapped one for 2, you go 5 upstairs. That puts Ollie to 11. And then you have 5. Oh, it just looks like it was just lethal anyway. So
Oh, anyways, okay, yeah. So killing the Tat one, yeah. But anyways, it worked out.
yeah, no, that was
Well,
pretty gross.
yeah, that was incredible. I wasn't thinking about the Orcish Bowmasters like Burning Inquiry thing. That is just quite the combo.
Yeah, that is the first time, that was the first time I've seen it on camera today because fortunately for me, Juza did try to do that against me, but I had the abrade to stop it. But yeah, that's kind of the like you said, the high highs and the high lows, and that's probably the highest high that you'll ever see when it comes to this Hollow One deck.
Yeah, when Ali and I were commentating your match, we at least I didn't see it. I don't think we saw it like eventually, but it wasn't like intuitive to me just because I haven't seen those two cards played in the same format, the Bowmasters and the Burning Inquiry, but yeah.
It's pretty sweet when it comes up. So as we get to game number 3 here, we are going to see Ali back on the play. Um, Assuming play draw matters a good bit in this matchup. One player is playing, the thought seizes. One player has the burning inquiries. So, do you have a specific favorite for game 3? Is it just Ali in the play? You're going to take Ali.
Yeah, I mean, he brought in the Ragavans, he took out the Obnixiluses. I think that makes sense. He's playing this hand though. Well, you asked me, but I've already seen the hand, so after
True,
seeing the hand, I
not so
would
much.
say I'm liking Martin, but this is
And
Ollie's about to go down to 5.
the 6 is not any better. When it comes to fives, you could do worse than guide, bombardment, discharge your lands. So not the
You
worst
could do
five.
worse, but you could do a lot. You could do better too.
Yeah, you could.
But
You could.
I mean,
And when as far as Martin Dane is concerned, kind of the same thing as last game, right? Has the Flame Blade, has the Bowmaster, has the Hollow One, just missing that card draw spell. And it's gonna cut off a little bit, but I think that was a Street Wraith.
yeah. So I wonder if he does want to cycle the Street Wraith now, or kind of try to wait and maybe chain some discards together for a Hollow One, or for some extra points with the Flame Blade Adept, because he could also just Lightning Bolt right now. Um, the Guide of Souls.
Yeah, that's what I was actually gonna ask you that. If you're in Martin's spot, do you Flame Blade on one or do you bolt on one?
I think I bolt. That's just my instinct here.
Especially with Ollie on a mold of 5, like, you feel like one of the only ways that this can slip out if, like, imagine you play the Flame Blade and Ollie goes second Guide of Souls, prod, attack, put 2 counters, end step, make a token, get 2 more energy. Like, a situation like that is maybe the only way you lose this game because, Ollie's just so far down on cards, so I think I like this play too.
Yeah, or even if he just got some more energy and made the guide into a 3/4 flyer, that would be annoying because now your bolt doesn't get rid of it. So Martin might just go Flame Blade Adept and pass the turn, and the next turn he can cycle Street Wraith and play a Hollow One, or have the Bowmaster. I mean, I think I like that. It's not amazing, but Ollie's on the mulligan. And what are your thoughts on the bombardment? Is that's become somewhat common, I suppose, in the energy decks, but it wasn't initially a card you often saw in this deck. Hmm.
Right. I think a lot of that has sort of like there's been the Goblin Bombardments have been a lot more popular as we see well they're not great in multiples, but I think it's become a lot more popular due to the presence of the energy mirror where if you have that in play, it's a lot easier to manage the battlefield when it comes to these gummed up boards with like Ocelot Pride tokens and this kind of stuff and there's a bunch of X ones in the energy deck so it not only is it good in the energy mirrors, I think, but it's also very good with the Johnny because it gives you a sack outlet to flip a Johnny, and it gives you some way of dealing damage with the turn that, like, not the turn after your opponent has the ring protection, where normally they play the ring, you can't attack them, but then if you have bombardment in play, you pass to them, and then even if they have a sweeper, you can get a lot of damage out of your bombardment. So I like it.
Yeah, that all makes sense to me. Um, Certainly not, as you mentioned, what Ali was looking for, because in multiples they're not really doing too much. I'm guessing he's playing two, like maybe it's three, but I
I think it was
mean,
two.
okay, it was two, yeah. So to draw both, that's pretty unfortunate.
Yeah, this is one of those cards where the second one is a lot worse than the first one, which as we see here. So Martin doing some, just casting a couple of one deuces, and we are shocking. So we're gonna go Gigantha and hold up the ability to discharge. I gotta say, Gigantha is I talk a lot of smack about Gigantha, but it's like it doesn't come up very, very often. But in a game like this, where low on resources, big creature that kind of gums up the battlefield, it could be extremely relevant here.
Yeah, good point. Could he have gotten rid of the Goyf instead of the Bowmaster? I mean, I don't know if Ali really thought about that. Maybe not sure which was more problematic. Maybe he couldn't have. Actually, I don't think he could have got rid of the Goyf, so never mind.
No, because I
Mm.
think the Goyf is only a 1/2, and the discharge would get him up to 3 energy. I think maybe the reason Ollie wanted to kill the Bowmasters is he's worried about something like a top deck Burning Inquiry.
Sure. Yeah.
Is something he's thinking about. We see Psychic Street Wraith cast 3 mana 4/4, still not that bad. And Ollie's going to fall to 8. And even if Ollie draws land for Gigantha, I think that's still going to be enough for game, right? Because Ollie fetches to 7, casts Gigantha, the bull puts him to 4, you block the hollow one, and that's still 4 unblocked.
I was thinking he was going to try to surveil into Flage, but that would have been like one other line he could have gone for. But yeah, this is lethal.
Oh, now it's even more lethal.
Mhm.
All right. Well, that is going to do it. That is going to be Martin Juza advancing over Ali Eldrazi. Congratulations to Martin. Going to be moving on to the next bracket, and condolences to Ollie. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. We will see. We will not see Ali. I'm sure we'll see him in future events, but not in this season of MTGO Masters. We'll see Martin and of course myself. We will be back.